got another one! Support arriving. Oh, they scored! They've only gone and done it! It's absolutely extraordinary!
Corner for Ulsan, headed down. It's in! Martin Adam! Surely the title belongs to the Tigers.
Hello, 안녕하세요. Welcome to this partially live edition of the K-League United podcast. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so bear with us. I'm Matthew Binns, and joining me live and laughing from Incheon, it's Luke Evans. How are we doing, Luke?
Hello, not bad, thank you.
And, calling in all the way from a virtual Hanoi, Andrew Farrell is here. How's life in Vietnam, Andrew?
It's beautiful. Had some great food before the game, and I've seen 5 goals here. Couldn't ask for any more than this, Matthew.
Oh, wow. Sounds fantastic. Andrew, he's got one eye on the Pohang game this evening, as it's currently 10:41 in Korea, and Pohang are still in action, despite the other 3 games involving K-League teams finishing. Why so late, you ask? Well, in case you've not realised, the AFC Champions League is back, and K-League sides Incheon United, Ulsan Hyundai, and Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors, plus Pohang Steelers, have been proudly flying the Taegukgi in what has been a promising match day one for Korean teams. We'll be rounding up all the action while keeping you updated with what is going on in Hanoi as that nears the end. Then producer Paul will be stepping in for the final recorded version to present an eventful second half featuring none other than Incheon United's Magosa. So lovely stuff. And, well, with this Magosa and Incheon talk, where else to start than in Japan, where Incheon United made their first foray into the AFC Champions League group stages yesterday to take on J-League champions Yokohama F. Mariners. Luke, I think you best take this one. How did it go?
I think it went far better than anybody expected. Speaking to a lot of Incheon fans who both went to the game and were watching from home, nobody expected us to come away with a win, particularly not a 4-2 win. I think before the game, everybody would have happily taken a point. And I think I said on the podcast last week, like, even not losing would be a good result. If we had have lost, then it wouldn't be the end of the world. But what happened yesterday was phenomenal, especially scoring so early. I saw the lineup an hour before the game, and it was interesting to see that Oban Sok had been taken out because he'd been so good at the weekend and he controlled the defense against Jeju very well. But Kim Yeon-soo came in, and Shin Jin-ho came in for Moon Ji-wan, who's another person who's been playing very well. And from the outset, we were hitting Yokohama on the counter, and our speed up front was something that I thought would be good for us, and it worked out perfectly. Very, very good.
Indeed, and let's go through the goals because, well, there are a few of them.
Yes, the first one, it was an own goal. I wasn't sure when I was watching it. I couldn't decide if it had gone in off the keeper or the defender. I know it was given. It was given as an own goal off the keeper in the end. But again, it's just putting pressure on the defenders and causing problems and causing confusion, and getting an early goal in a situation where we're probably going to be pretty nervous, where it's a new experience for a lot of players. I think it was a good way to settle everybody down. Obviously, it didn't last very long, and the goals that we conceded, I think we could have done better with them. The whole night, set pieces into the box were causing absolute chaos. Yokohama were denied a penalty by VAR, and I think that was one that could have been given if their player had been onside. The ball did hit, I think it was Kim Dong-min's hand, but you get some luck sometimes. Jerso running through on goal, and again, it was similar to what we saw when we were in the qualifying game against Haiphong, where he was on the last man and he ran through, and you're shouting at him to shoot, and he took it round the keeper, and I was a little bit nervous, but yeah, he found the back of the net. But everything changed in the 60th minute. And it's surprising that Mugosa going off was the catalyst for us to actually take a hold of the game. Hernandez coming on and battling and pressuring and having two or three fast players on, because we had Kimbo Sop on as well. It was very good, and we made Yokohama make mistakes. And once we went 3-2 up, getting the option of sort of either sitting back or going for it, keeping going for it, I think was the right decision. We ended up winning 4-2, and you have nearly 1,000 Incheon fans who are very, very happy in the away end.
Very happy indeed. And we are going to be talking about those. I'm going to be talking about the positive in a second, but there has been a goal in Hanoi. Andrew, we're waiting for this moment. What's happened?
I thought when we came on air that we might have been lucky. You might have seen the end of the action, but Dietrich has scored the second goal of the game, so it's now Hanoi 2, Pohang 4. It's been a really good performance from Pohang. I know we're going to get back onto this later, but 4-2. I think Hanoi they're probably deserved of that goal. So we have 3 minutes of normal time left. That's whatever the referee adds on at the end. So perhaps this is the last time we're heading over to Hanoi.
Well, let's not say that yet. Well, you can always hope. But yeah, Luke, they're going back to Yokohama yesterday. Then, so I mean, you talked about the tactics there at the beginning, the changes, and was this just one where manager Jo Sung-hwan, he just got it right, or was there anything that was concerning as well? I
mean, I was a bit nervous seeing Moon Ji-hwan out of the team, if I'm honest. When he went off on Saturday against Jeju, everything kind of stopped in the midfield. Like, we stopped actually tackling. We sat back and we couldn't win the ball. So him not playing and Shin Jin-ho coming in, who's not played a lot this year, and when he has played, he's not really played in a way that he would be tackling or winning the ball. It did worry me. But yeah, I think full credit to the manager. He's got his decisions absolutely spot on. And it's not the first time this year. We've played away in games where we'd be the underdog, and he's picked the right team, and they've gone out and played for him, and we've come away with a win. And while he keeps doing that, I don't think you can complain about any team selection that he makes.
No, and beating the J-League champions in their own backyard with 4 goals. I mean, it's a phenomenal start and a phenomenal introduction to other teams of Incheon United. So, I mean, he's played a strong team there. Maybe we shouldn't be looking ahead to the weekend. Maybe we should still be celebrating. But do you have any concerns ahead of the weekend? Because obviously you've got a game against Gangwon Incheon. They're kind of securing themselves up in the top half now. We are running out of games before the split, though. Is there any concern that there might be some tired legs out there?
Well, Gangwon have actually been doing pretty well recently as well, I think. And Mugosa was playing international football last week in Europe, and he's flown back and he played 60 minutes on Saturday, and then he played 60 minutes in Japan. It wouldn't surprise me to see him on the bench this week. And maybe we do rotate the team a little bit. I think players who are fit and able to play and start, I think will do, but there has to be, some consideration for the sheer number of games that we've played recently. Perhaps Jerso as well is due a bit of a rest. I know he's been leading the line, and he's putting a lot of running in, and the way that he plays on the last man and runs into the corner and chases the ball down, it's got to be tiring, particularly on heavy pitches. And given all the rain we've got, maybe it could be an opportunity for somebody else to come in and stake a claim going into the final round, into the split. Indeed,
but well, they, as I said, got a lot to celebrate. So Incheon, they actually lead the group as well. They were the other result in that group. Shandong Taishan, they beat Kaya 3-1. Incheon going to be versing Kaya next as well. So I guess we should really move on to the other 3 games. We are going to be going back to Incheon later, obviously with Magosa, and we've also got some fan reaction as well from the stadium. So stay tuned to that. But yeah, the other game on Tuesday night, Ulsan Hyundai, they ran out 3-1 winners against BG Pathum United. Hands up, honestly, who watched this one over the Incheon game? Because I think everybody was curious to see how Incheon was going to get on against such a reputable team in Yokohama. But This one was quite good for Ulsan. It was always going to be the lesser of the draw for the neutral, but they had a lot riding on it. They've been stuttering in form in the league. We know they've been feeling the pressure a little bit from Pohang, who just keep finding the results, and their once phenomenal lead at the top, it's now down to 6 in the K-League, and this could have easily been a difficult one. But 3-1 in the end. They started off very threatening. Lee Dong-kyung, he hit the crossbar, and Lee Dong-kyung was pretty much involved throughout. The 28th minute, Jung Sung-hyun, he had a bit of a shot from distance. Keeper spilled it into the path of Lee Dong-kyung, and he squared it to Martin Adam, who scored his first, what would be his first of the night. Patham got back into it. Ryan Stewart, he got the equaliser. He capitalised on the initial block shot from Freddy Antonio Alvarez. And then Ulsan, 2 goals in 5 minutes. In the 72nd minute, good passing movement with Ataru playing an incisive 1-2 and then cutting it back across for Adam to get second before Vako then brought it down in the box, squaring to Adam to convert his third. Very professional performance from Ulsan. Any highlights for this one? Anything at all? Andrew, did you catch anything?
Yeah, just what you said there. I thought the second goal was beautiful. And like Luke already mentioned this as well, that these pitches are heavy. You can see this across the continent. It's not even just in Korea. Pitches are cutting up everywhere. So the football that they played leading up to that second goal was beautiful. And the assist for the first goal was top class too. I thought Ulsan played pretty well in the end. I know just listening to the commentary on YouTube afterwards, there's talk that, perhaps the score might have flattered them a little bit, but I thought Ulsan played pretty well. And even the goal that they conceded, I mean, at one point there were 8 defenders in the box, and only a couple of attackers. But it was an unfortunate goal to concede. The ball is ricocheting all over the place, and it was a good finish in the end. But there was a certain amount of luck to it. So yeah, like you were saying, like they've obviously kind of run out of confidence a little bit, run out of form. That lead at the top was whittled down. But they got 3 points, 3 goals, and they move on. Their group isn't as straightforward as Jeonbuk's group, so they really needed this win because they got tougher days ahead. But yeah, I'd say Hummingbird was pretty happy with how that ended for him.
Yeah, definitely. And you can't turn your nose up at 3 points. And I was just really impressed with how Lee Dong-kyung really worked in that. I know Adam got the hat trick and fair play, man of the match as well. But Lee Dong-kyung, he was so involved in all that attacking play, and it's good to see him having come back earlier in the year from Europe and finding his feet in such a way. But yeah, I guess the slight negative was the defensive frailty for the goal they conceded. Probably should have done a little bit better. They had kind of switched off and left players unmarked. But overall, a reasonable performance from the K-League champions. And the result puts them top of the group. Elsewhere in their group, JDT beat Kawasaki. I think that might be the other way around. Kawasaki beat JDT, but only by single goal, 1-0. Before we move on to Jeonbuk then, which happened earlier tonight, has there been any updates in Hanoi, Andrew?
Yes, there's only 10 seconds to go, so hopefully this is it, and we can put an end to this game here. Okay, so it could have been 5. It was pretty close to 5 there for Pohang. A solid effort away from home, first round of the tournament. But yes, this looks like it's it. There's only a couple of seconds to go, so no more updates from Hanoi, I'm afraid. Game is over. That's it. Game is over.
Oh, we'll come back and get your thoughts then on Pohang. We'll let you gather them in your head while I bore everyone to death with Jeonbuk, because Jeonbuk were in action today, and yes, they did kind of bore a little bit to death as well. They did win 2-1 in what was a clean sweep for K-League sides in the end. They went 1-0 up, courtesy of a Hong Jong-ho header, a nice ball in from Junamano. This was something picked up by Tom Bolger in the pre-match podcast, where we talked about Jeonbuk's threat from set pieces. A bit surprising that Jong Tae-uk wasn't utilised here, given the height and given how wet the pitch was, especially at the weekend. There was some doubt tonight whether Jeonbuk's pitch would actually be in any state to play this game, but it managed to hold out. But yeah, so Hong Jong-ho got the goal in the 6th minute, and Jeonbuk, they kept getting chances. Now, it's hard to complain too much because they've won, but I felt like all their chances weren't. I felt like underwhelmed by them. I have been for a long time with them, but it was always when their passing has still got an element of risk averseness to it. Sure, it is beginning to pay off. You can see these nice movements down the wing and things, but I still feel like they really shoot themselves in the foot in the build-up. They could be going a lot quicker than they do, a lot more direct than they do. And then when they do get near the box, they take shots from ridiculous angles. I remember there's one shot with Kim Jin-soo. He got a shot away, and it was like from a tight angle. And it's like, well, why don't you just pass it back across the box? Why are you taking those kind of shots? And it's still a work in progress for Jeonbuk. They did get a lot of shots in, though. And but before that, Kichi, who didn't get that many in, got one equalizer that is going to be doing the rounds on social media because, well, I'm fairly sure he didn't mean it, and I'm fairly sure he won't be taking credit for it. Mikel for Kichi, throw in into the Jeonbuk box, ball going to the byline, and he overhead kicks it to kind of try and keep it in play and bring it into the box, and he hits it at such an angle. It just comes down, nicks the bottom of the crossbar, and bounces behind John Min-ki into the back of the net. And yeah, 1-1. Suddenly, we've seen Jeonbuk, we've seen them in this weekend, where they lose a goal lead and then it all kind of collapses. But it didn't seem to materialize here. Han Kyo-won, how many times have we said his name when it comes to Champions League football with Jeonbuk? Stepping up again to slot in a loose ball after Ryo Jae-min had an initial shot cut out by the Kichi defence. So in the end, 2-1. A much needed win for Jeonbuk. I guess I can complain about the style of football still. I can complain about how I find it boring and things, but they won. They haven't won for a while. They haven't been scoring for a while. This was a much needed break for Dan Petrescu's side. They will be able to look at the chances they created and think, well, okay, we are making these opportunities. We just need to get a bit better at putting them in the back of the net. But yeah, a lot of waste as well. That I think John Amano probably was one of the better players for Jeonbuk, mainly because of his ability for the set pieces. But for me as well, Gustavo didn't offer very much in attack either for Jeonbuk tonight. Elsewhere, though, Lion City Sailors, well, they were 1-0 up against Bangkok, but I actually haven't been keeping tabs on that one. I don't know if anyone's... Oh, I take it all back. Lion City Sailors, they were 1-0 up with Diego Lopez scoring in the 25th minute there, but Bangkok United have come back and won that one 2-1. So two teams with 2-1 wins, Jeonbuk and Bangkok leading that group. And then I guess we come to the match where you are in Hanoi, Andrew. So just give us
They're going to kick me out now, so we got to go.
Oh, the lights, dimming the lights.
Yeah. Interesting. It was a good game. I watched both of these games back to back. So the Jeonbuk game on first. I agree with what you're saying. It was kind of tedious. Now the weather conditions were horrendous again, as you know, in Jeonju, and like it is difficult to break down a team that has 25% of the ball, 11 men behind the ball, pretty much for the entire game. I guess the good thing from a Jeonbuk point of view is at least when Kichi scored, that Jeonbuk went straight out the other end and scored and wrapped it up. Like, and their group isn't that testing really. That Dan Petrescu should be able to get his whatever he's looking for to get them through that group. And harder days are definitely ahead. But Pohang Steelers, yeah, they've won 4-2 in the end. They actually started pretty slowly. Hanoi FC looked like a really good team at the beginning. They had a couple of clear-cut chances. One was headed off the line, and the other one, the goalkeeper, made a great save down to his left. Hwang In-jae, the goalkeeper, made a brilliant save from a free header. But once Pohang settled, they got their first goal after 30 minutes. It was an own goal as well. A little bit like the one in the Incheon Yokohama game yesterday. Kind of watching that on the replay, like what happened? There seemed to be a lot of confusion amongst the commentators and the fans and the players around. But Damien Letelek, it looked like he'd fouled Zeka in the lead up to the goal, but the ball just ricocheted off his head and went into his own net. It was comical enough at the end. But then 2 minutes later, it was 2-0. Zeka had a brilliant game, especially in the first half. Delicious one-touch pass into the path of Yu Min Ho, and he just, from a tightish angle, 6 yards out, just rolled the ball past the goalkeeper. And then Zeka had a role in the third goal as well. Again, a pass out to the right side. Was perfectly weighed. And Kim In-sung lashed the ball first effort into the same corner that Ewan had finished the second goal. Zeka kind of wrapped up in all action first half then with a yellow card during a rare period of Hanoi pressure after the first 15 minutes or so. Kim In-sung made it 4-0 then at the start of the second half. And Hanoi did pull 2 back. I guess the important thing for Pohang is there was a period of play there. This is probably, let's see this maybe as a positive. There was a period there after went to 4-1 where they looked like they're under a significant amount of pressure, but they rode it out. And the second goal for Hanoi did not come until the last 5 minutes of the game. So positives are pretty simple. Yeah, 3 points, 4 goals on the road. Zeka was absolutely outstanding, especially in the first half. And this looks like it's the tightest group, I would have thought, and this region of the AFC Champions League. So just any 3 points at this point will do. There are obviously much bigger games ahead for Pohang as well, but I'd say they'll be delighted getting on the plane to go back home.
Indeed. Well, 4 wins from 4 for K-League teams in this match day 1. We have some questions in the mailbag, and one of them is from Charlie Beasley via Twitter, who says, will a Korean team win the ACL? Perhaps getting a slightly bit carried away there, Charlie. But yes, could a Korean team win the ACL? Luke, go for it.
Incheon will win.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very difficult given the teams in the western half of the competition, given the amount of money that's been spent, given the quality of the players that are now playing in the Middle East. I think it's going to be tough. And that's not to say that it won't happen, because, anybody can go anywhere and get a win. But I do think that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for any team in the eastern side, I think, now to actually out and out win the Champions League. And I think as well, the change from a year-long tournament to being from September to May, I think that's designed as well to help teams in the West who play the season the same as a European team. So I think it's going to be odds against a Korean team winning, or even an Asian team, like Eastern Asian team, winning. But there's always a chance. If it comes down to a game or a final, then you take your chances.
Yeah, that's true. As long as, it's only that one game. Who knows what could happen at the end of it? But we've got to get a Korean team there in the first place, and I'm sure not all the J League sides are going to be as easy as Yokohama Marinos.
If you had to pick a K League one side, if I gave you 50,000 won of my cash, where would you put the money?
To get the furthest of the...
Okay. Yeah, to get the furthest.
Honestly, Pohang. I think Pohang this year have arguably, certainly recently, have arguably been better than Ulsan. I think they have... they've got better form, and Ulsan have shown this ability to just lose random games when they definitely shouldn't. I mean, Incheon won at Ulsan. They've lost to Gangwon. They've lost games that they shouldn't be losing, and I think sometimes that they underestimate their opponents. Whereas Pohang go set up and they have a clear idea and a professional outlook on what they have to do. I think sometimes Ulsan turn up expecting to win. Because they start the year every year. They start the year really, really well, and then they drop off. Like, we get through the summer and it's kind of, they go downhill, and it's alarming how regular it's happened.
It's become more of it's less of a coincidence at this point, isn't it? It's a pattern. Yeah, it's been going to 2019. I know they won it last year, but it also came quite close last year.
And as well, they've had quite a lot of transfers in and out and things. And yet, even with changing the players, they're not able to comprehensively control the league and dominate as they start in the beginning. So I don't know if there's something else causing it. I don't know if it's a wider issue within the structure at Ulsan, but they aren't the team that they were in the opening weeks.
Would that not play into their hands then, that the final is next year as opposed to this year, that, the usual turnover of staff, and they always start the year pretty well, that maybe when it comes to the beginning of next season, they might actually be towards their peak? It could work in their favor. It's just so hard to know, like, with the fact that the season here ends as well before Christmas, basically. We just don't really know what shape some of these Korean sides are
Anybody's
going to
gonna
be
be.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it really tough to pick a Korean winner in this entire
And
I
tournament.
mean,
you know, like Jeonbuk's going to buy all those Pohang players in the off season.
I think it's very strange as well that the Incheon team that qualified, the Incheon players that qualified for the Champions League this year, which potentially will be a final in 2024, have probably might not have been at the team for like the last 18 months. It's so strange the way that the competition's been set up so that you qualify like 18 months before the final of the competition, and that we start in September, even though it's like nearly a year now since teams qualified last year. I'm not sure. It's a strange way of doing things, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Well, I'm going to say Pohang as well. Just to go back to the question, I think as well, Pohang they're just one of those teams that relish the occasion. I think we've seen it a few times in recent Champions Leagues, and we got to the final a couple of years ago and things. They just seem to find those big performances, and not always against the smaller clubs. They tend to sometimes lose focus a little bit, and that's why they haven't won it for a while. You know, that's why they haven't won the league for a while. But it feels like a different season for them. But it depends what happens in the off season, because they do tend to lose key players once a year, twice a year, usually to Jeonbuk, but elsewhere is also possible. And you know, who doesn't want Kim Ki-dong as well as their manager? You know, they're gonna have to try and keep hold of him, and he's lost players who've been sold without his permission as well, like Son Min-kyu was sold without his permission and things. You wonder like how much patience he has as a manager if the same pattern keeps happening. But you think as well, if Pohang can do the unthinkable this season, perhaps knock Ulsan off the top, and
it wouldn't surprise me. The way things have been going, it wouldn't surprise me. Like Pohang played Incheon the other week, and it was 2 penalties that won the game, but they were a machine. They controlled the game, and whenever Incheon did have a chance, they shut us down fairly quickly. It was we didn't cause them any problems, I don't think.
Well, speaking of the changing schedule, we do have another question in from our very own Jung Mu via Twitter, and it's a question to all of us, and he wants to know what's our thought on the ACL running from September to next May, like the UCL, from the fans' reaction and the media's point of view. Will this format have the ACL buried under the UCL football and news, or will it generate more attention and bring more attention to Asian football? I'll pass this one to you, Luke. What do you think?
I don't like it. I think it was the year that COVID started, like 2020, when Suwon had the early game against Vissel Kobe. I think that it was when things were just starting to be problematic. Like it was a great way to open the season, knowing that you have a Champions League game. Like it's a brilliant way to get fans back into the ground. And I think from like a Korean fan perspective, if you know that you have these early games in the Champions League that are important, it could have a knock-on effect attendance-wise and bring people in and get people familiar with going back to games and stuff. Because a game against a Japanese team or a Chinese team or a Thai team could potentially be more of an enticement to actually come to games than just your bog standard K-League fixture. I think it's a great way to get people back in, and the way that we've changed this schedule now so that we're not even playing the qualifying games until 9 months after teams qualified, and the group stage is 10 or 11 months after teams qualify. I don't think it's fair on the players. They should, if you qualify playing for a team, you should have the opportunity to at least represent the team in that competition. And the way that transfers work, a year later, 18 months later, a lot of players won't be at the same team.
You wonder if you're going to start seeing a shift in with the clubs that regularly make the Champions League. You wonder whether there would be a shift perhaps to having contracts that might end mid-season to kind of match the Champions League for those players that are just kind of focused on that trophy as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure those kind of clubs like Jeonbuk and Ulsan, they're not going to really allow for that kind of length contract to happen, but it does. You know, the Kim Jin-soo loans and things like that, where he's supposed to go back midway through a season. Andrew, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change. I think we're just going to get used to this as well. I don't like it either because I like watching football wearing shorts and t-shirts, and we can't really do that for some of these group stage games. I don't think it will detract from the tournament. I don't think the European Champions League will have much of an impact on it. I actually get the feeling now that, like you guys were talking about before, with the likes of Neymar, Benzema, Ronaldo playing in the Asian Champions League now, they're going to generate their own interest anyway. And you've seen some of these group stage games with the likes of Benzema, Kante, Ronaldo. They're heading to places like Dushanbe, Tashkent, whatever. Very, very strange game. So I think from a publicity point of view, the AFC Champions League will be okay. It's just that from where we are, our vantage point here, it's far from ideal. I was at that game that Luke was talking about as well. That game against Iniesta was over playing for Kobe at the time, and it was really exciting. It was the next day, that everything shut down, and I like that about it as well. Is the end of February was pretty cold, but the sense of football is returning. Like within a week or so, or 2 weeks, the regular season will be upon us. So I don't like it either. But I get the feeling I'd be shocked if they go back to the way it was before. I think this is how it's going to be.
I think, with that level of investment in the Western side of the competition, and we've already seen like decisions always kind of fall in favour of the West administrative wise and things. I don't think, like you said, I don't think it's going to be changing back. But it's certainly a period of time I'm going to miss for those reasons you just said. I used to love going to Jeonbuk in February and watch that is the season start, and it was quite nice to also finish the season with the Champions League. It's going to be doesn't have that same feel to it. That it's like big game at this weekend, and then the weekend after you can have gang one.
That's it. If you win it, the final is going to be kind of almost like a non-event, because you're not going to get time to go out and celebrate or enjoy it. It's going to be kind of a game and back. I mean, Incheon. The Incheon team were on the plane back to Korea this morning at 1 a.m., 1:30 to prepare for the weekend. Now, if that's the Champions League final, it depends where you're playing the final, but it's going to be a long flight back on a Wednesday night or a Wednesday morning to get ready for the weekend's games. Like, I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to have a weekend off in the K-League schedule ahead of after the final. But
I think that, I think they'd probably just have to delay that team's game. If a K-League team got into the final, they just have to postpone those games.
You can play 8 o'clock on Sunday instead.
Yeah, or 8 o'clock on a Friday night, depending on the running track situation with the local government. But yeah,
all about Suwon FC's games,
all at Suwon FC. Right then. Anyway, we've got producer Paul possibly waiting in the wings, waiting to kick off the second half of this podcast. Because for those listening to the recorded version, well, Paul's going to be in a strike partnership with Incheon United's Stefan Magosa after the break, and we're also going to have some reaction from Yokohama, from the Incheon fans. But for those of you who are watching live, however, Champions League's back, and K-League teams are looking as strong as ever. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Fans, we want to hear from you. You're encouraged to email KLU at info@kleagueunited.com or tweet at KLeague United with any questions, comments or reactions. Or ask directly during one of our live shows.